Hello, hello, everybody. Apologies if you've been waiting for the live. If you've been waiting live for me to be live, welcome. So good to be here. Let's start with some quiet sitting, taking a nice deep breath and noticing your physical body and its presence right here, right now. Let the base of your body be heavy and anchored to the ground. Let the upper body feel light and buoyant and free, uplifted, alert. Allow your spine to be elongated. Let the face, the jaw, the brow, the eyes all be soft. And notice your breath. Fluid arriving on the way in and fluid departing on the way out. Noticing the mind's tendency to wander away and then gently returning to the very next breath, the very next moment. Moments of being, moments of presence, moments of attention. every breath signaling a new arising of moment, a new arising of presence that was born of the last moment, but is unto itself separate on the continuum of being, but new and fresh and unique and profoundly impermanent, giving rise to the next and the next and the next. So we ask ourselves, how fully present can we be for each one of these moments in the stream? Excuse me. Breathing in, noticing the inness of the breath. And breathing out, noticing the outness of the breath. A breath that comes in is just that. The breath that goes out is just that. In the same way that a thought that comes in is just that. Are we willing to let it go right back out as just that? Take another sweeping inhale. Stay with it as closely for as long as you can, all the way in. and all the way out. Stay, stay, stay. All right, once again, welcome. When my father and stepmother cleaned out their home of 30 years and moved to Florida, I inherited my father's beautiful mahogany desk. It's a special piece that he designed and had custom made out of a spinet piano, an old piece, those little small upright pianos that had this beautiful casing. So they took out the keys and the strings and made a desk out of it. It's really special. And his red leather chair, upholstered, nail head trimmed, and just so lusciously worn in after how many decades? 6, 7 decades. It preceded my life. They're both really unique pieces. I have them, I use them every day in my office, and I really treasure them. Not just what they mean to me, emotionally. They were my dad's. I have childhood memories of climbing into his lap while he was sitting in that chair and rooting around in the specialized cubbies on the desk to find a stamp or one of his prized 50-cent pieces that he used to give us. But even beyond the sentimentality of them, they're just really one-of-a-kind pieces. You can't pick one up at Pottery Barn. But what if I believed in my mind that every chair and every desk was supposed to look like my dad's chair and desk / mine now? What if I refused to sit in any chair that wasn't red leather because I didn't perceive it to be a chair? Right? What if I refused to work at any desk if it didn't have those special cubbies at the back of it, and I didn't believe it to be a desk? So the headlines from Buddhist philosophers say that we mistakenly infer things like this all the time, that our mind plays this trick that takes one idea about something, a specialized characteristic, like this chair is red or this desk has cubbies, and then took that specialized characteristic and generalized it to mean that all chairs must be red and all desks must have cubbies. All trees must have string lights plugged into the wall in them. So what would we do when we found a blue chair or a plain tabletop desk or a tree without lights? Would we, if we believed that it wasn't a chair or it wasn't a desk, then we would refuse to sit in it because we've conditioned some part of our mind to think that, oh, that must not be a chair, that must not be a desk. So this is a really simplified example of the way we infer ideas about things that are erroneous. And we don't usually do this with things that are easily identifiable and differentiated, like all kinds of chairs and all kinds of desks, all kinds of trees. So it's not hard to understand that chair can mean 1,000 different things. I'm going to say more about this, but before I do, before we get a little more complex, I want to offer a short contemplative exercise on this idea of specific versus generalized phenomena. So here it goes. Pick an object in your immediate surroundings. If you're inside a room, just find something in the room. I'm gonna consider that pillow. There's 2 of them. I'm gonna pick one of those to be my object of exercise right now. Pick one thing. Anything that you can directly cognize with your senses. So name it. And just hold the idea of it in your mind. Focus on it. And list its characteristics that you can directly perceive. Its color, its shape, its volume or weight, its texture, if you can touch it, if it's near enough to you. The sound it makes, if it's making any sound right now. The smell of it, if it has one, if you can smell something. And just sit with that idea of this object and all of the senses that you can directly experience. So if you're not touching it, then you're not directly experiencing its texture. We're not having ideas about what that experience is. We're actually having the experience. So limit your contemplation to the experience that you're actually having. Potentially, it's just what you're looking at. So right now, I'm just seeing that pillow behind me. I'm not touching it. I can't smell it. I can't touch it. I can't reach it. But I'm just looking at it. I'm thinking pillow. And now bring to mind another version of this same category of object that is not in your direct sensory experience. So I can think of my pillow at home on my bed, in my bedroom. So a different thing that's in the same category. And now alternate your mind between the one that's here, name it as pillow here, and then the one that isn't, pillow there. And just alternate which one you're thinking of. Pillow here, the thing you can see or touch or hear or smell or taste if you're using food, and the thing there. Go back and forth. Back and forth in your mind. Stay as close as you can to the idea of the thing that isn't here or with you, and the experience of the thing that is there with you. So we're really simply just meditating on two objects, one that's here and one that isn't. Alternating, taking turns holding them in the forefront of mind. And then take a few clearing breaths. And then come back to your immediate surroundings and release the exercise. So now we'll make it a little more complex. And the thing to notice about the two objects is the difference between having the sensory experience that's right in front of you and having ideas about what's not. So I have an idea of the pillow on my bed at home that is in the position where I left it when I made my bed this morning, and haven't returned to the bedroom since. But when I get home later and I go into the bedroom, I might find that the two cats have rustled up my pillow and maybe even like, you know, nestled into one of them and made an imprint with their little bodies, or played a little tug of war with the pillowcase, and maybe it might be off center. So I have this idea of pillow, but I can't verify it because it's not in front of me. I'm not having that sensory experience of it like I am with that pillow right now. I can see it, and I can tell you exactly the color that I perceive and the shape it's in and the position it's in, right? So, but what if we're not talking about a pillow or a chair or anything that can be directly experienced by the five senses? What if we're talking about conceptions, concepts, or emotions? So it gets trickier, and it gets into leading causes of suffering when we start to have ideas about feelings and how they're evoked and provoked by other people, when we don't have the information all right in front of us. So what we infer about them is going to get distorted. Here's an example. The idea that we have about friendship. This is not a tangible sensory object that we can touch and describe and have a direct, validated experience with. It's an idea that we have been conditioned over our whole lives to have. And if, for example, somebody grew up in a family that moves every year to a new town, and they haven't been able to establish lasting friendships or develop the social skill of friend making very well, friendship is going to mean something specific to them based on their conditioning that they might then generalize to mean all social interactions or all relationships are that brief, that superficial, lacking enduring warmth or real care. So the inferences about friendship are created by these past experiences that are no longer necessarily true, but they're getting laid on top of an idea that we have. What if we're talking about a conceptual institution like marriage, and somebody is conditioned to believe that marriage is between one man and one woman? And then their grown son lets them know that he intends to marry another man. So the parents who have this conceptualized notion of what marriage is, confined by their experience and conditioning and their beliefs, they either have to let go of that deeply conditioned idea of marriage. Not all chairs are red, right? Or they risk losing their relationship with their son, and they lose all the potential of a wonderful possible new son-in-law. Not all desks have cubbies, right? So they'll either find a chair to sit in, or they'll be very uncomfortable on 2 feet all the time. Lots of concepts that we could apply these examples to, but I hope you'll get the idea. There's a really great riddle that wakes us up to how deeply conditioned our social concepts are. Maybe you've heard it. So a father and son are in a terrible car crash, and the father dies on impact, but the son survives. He's not well, and he's rushed to the hospital. He needs surgery. And the doctor comes in, takes one look at the patient and panics and cries out and says, "I can't operate on this man. This is my son." And it usually takes a beat or two to figure out that this doctor is either the mother, not the father, because we just learned that the father died, right? So it's either the mother, and then we realized, wow, how deeply conditioned we've been to believe that doctors are men. Or the doctor is a man, and he is the father of the son, and this son has two fathers. So either way, and you could slice it up lots of different ways, but either way, the idea is that conditioned concepts are only as good as the moment in which they arise. And that's the teaching that we're examining here. They're only as good as the moments in which they arise. The only thing we can be absolutely certain of is what we experience through our sense faculties in this actual moment. And then from there, we turn to wisdom to process what we're apprehending with the senses and with the consciousness that connect with the senses in a way that opts for the least suffering possible. We are looking to apprehend a moment and interpret it in the kindest way possible. We are always making inferences about our surrounding environment. We're programmed to do that biologically so that we can survive. It's a survival mechanism that the neural pathways of the brain get really well attuned to certain things. Chair, 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 chair. Now I know where to sit. Pillow, pillow, pillow. Now I know where to lay my head. Those inferences, however, can get us into trouble when we start to layer on top conditioning that is no longer valid and no longer present. Most often, the trouble arises when it's negotiating the apprehension of another person in our presence, when we're trying to figure out and process the communication back and forth of the interplay between two delicate organisms known as human beings. And so a comment or a tone that we encounter from someone gets misinferred, mistaken, as having a certain meaning because we've taken one specific instance from the past of feeling disregarded or disrespected or condescended to, and we're generalizing it to refer to the situations where it might not really be happening. So my proposition here is that if and when we are going to infer something, because we do, pretty much guaranteed, that we could consider inferring the closest thing to love that we can possibly find in the moment. Patience or compassion or peace or care or forbearance, kindness, friendliness in the conventional sense. The thing that gets us closest to ease, the thing that takes us furthest away from suffering as possible. It looks like giving people the benefit of the doubt. It looks like taking people's words at face value. It looks like understanding that there's a lot of unseen conditioning in the other person that may be causing them to mistake or misinfer our responses, our words, our actions. And again, it looks like patience, it looks like compassion, it looks like care. It looks and feels soft and perhaps quiet, maybe luminous with sparks of joy. That's the invitation, to infer, to make inferences that get us as close to loving kindness as we can possibly be. So let's sit with that for a bit of time now. Take some deep breaths. Let your body feel grounded and safe. Notice the way the inhale can fill as much of your torso as you imagine. And let that fullness sustain your presence just in that very flicker of time, that one little bit of a moment. Imagine that all you need is that fullness of that one breath. Breath comes in, breath goes out. And here we are in a new moment, a new experience. What inferences are we making right here, right now, and are they based on what's actually present? And then just 3 more steady breaths in and out. And then, if you'd like, gather up your palms and bring them together in front of your heart. Release your head towards your hands and your heart. And join me in the hope and the wish that all beings may be safe from all forms of violence that seem to be so prevalent right now in our midst. That all beings may find their true hearts luminous and compassionate, that can help us remember that we are not alone for any challenge that arises. And that all beings may find ways to understand the causes of their own suffering and find their feet on the path to relieve those causes and to find themselves free from pain and to find themselves at peace. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon.